Welcome back. Joining us now is Dr. Max Cynader of the UBC Brain Research Center. Hi there, Max.
Hi, very nice to be here.
Well, thank you. We have a question right off the bat from our person of the week, Ilsu. Let's see what she has to ask you.
Okay.
How much capacity is the elder's memory?
Okay, so how much capacity can someone who is maturing expect to be able to have in terms of memory retention, utilizing their brain for recalling facts and information? And I'm sure she's referring to this because she's recently been a student.
Well, I think the answer is it depends on lots of things. People have done studies of successful aging writ large and looked at, twins, fraternal twins versus identical twins, twins reared apart versus twins reared together. And when you do all of, you can treat successful aging and memory retention as a trait in the same way as you could, for instance, flat feet. And the answer is that about 25% of the variance can be accounted for by genetic factors.
But that's great news, because we've got 75% environmental.
That's absolutely right. So 75% depends on what you're actually doing with your own life, or what you have done with your own life up until this point. On average, if you look at 1 million people, that one's memory capacity does tend to get somewhat worse as we age. And that's related to changes that occur in the brain. There are parts of the brain that we know are important in encoding memories and in storing them. But that's a broad average. And there's a lot of variability, a lot of differences. And there's a lot of evidence that we can actually do things to keep our memory sharp, and that we can even improve our memory as we get older.
Well, Ilsu obviously did some good things throughout her lifetime to be such a competent, sharp student heading back to school when she did. What kinds of things can all of us do moving forward to ensure that we're in that good percentage where we're really sharp at 110?
Absolutely. So she's obviously doing some things right. She's gone back to school. She's continuing to stimulate her brain. Basically, the rule is that neurons that are put together in circuits tend to synchronize with each other, and the wires among them get stronger and stronger. And so what she's doing by continuing to stimulate her brain, by taking courses, by putting herself in a new environment, by exposing herself to interesting surroundings, is she's giving those neurons an opportunity to form new and stronger circuits. And that's very important. She's probably also doing another thing that's very important for keeping your brain sharp. She's probably eating well. What we want is a balanced diet, lots of vegetables and fruits, lots of different colors, and that's what it takes. So she's doing that. The other thing that she looks like she may well be doing, just from a glance at her, she's probably doing exercise. And this is quite surprising. Physical exercise turns out to be one of the best things you can actually do for your brain. So in this part of your brain that's involved in encoding memories, every day we make new brain cells. And it turns out we can enhance the production of those new brain cells by doing physical exercise.
What's so interesting is that it's the synergy, it's the combination of exercise as intense as you can muster, I guess, combined with as much intellectual stimulation as you can find.
Pretty much.
It's those two things.
It's those two things. Those are not the only two things. You want to eat a good diet. You want to not overeat, because there's evidence that you're going to basically age better if you eat less. And the other thing that I would emphasize is, to make sure that you get a good night's sleep in addition to everything else. So after a hard day of exercising, thinking, eating a good diet, make sure you get those 8 hours, because if you don't, you're going to enhance your vulnerability to stress, you're going to depress your immune system, and we've actually found in studies that sleep is a period of time during which you stamp in some of the memories of the day.
This is fantastic information across the board, and really what I'm hearing you say is that it's in all of our powers to really maximize our memory, to really be smart and sharp moving into old age?
Absolutely. You know, it's, you know, I think there's this defeatist attitude that some people get to. Oh, I can't remember where I left my keys. I must be getting old and stupid. Well, you know, that it's not necessarily so. I mean, I forget where my keys are all the time, but that's actually not the most important sort of kind of memory. You know, it's if you don't know what your keys are or how to open a lock anymore, then you got problems.
I love how you put things into perspective, Max. Dr. Max Cynader, awesome information. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It's always great to have you here.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment.
This segment is brought to you by Odlum Brown.
Joining us now is Murray Leith, Vice President and Director of Investment Research at Odlum Brown. Our person of the week, Ilsworth McLaren, asks this question of Murray: how do I participate in emerging markets? Murray?
Well, that's a good question that I get asked often, and I've got a bit of an unconventional strategy. Most individuals invest in emerging markets by buying mutual funds that invest directly in companies headquartered in places like China and Brazil. And that's a cost-effective strategy that works well in theory, but in the real world, theory and human nature don't mix well. When you invest in companies that you're unfamiliar with on the other side of the world, there's a good chance that you're going to panic and sell during the inevitable downturns, and that ultimately undermines performance. A better strategy is to invest in companies that you're familiar with closer to home that do business overseas. A decade ago, for Canadians, the best way to do that was in Canadian resource stocks because they were out of favor and very cheap back then. But today, those companies and emerging market mutual funds are popular and more expensive. So in today's market, I think where you're going to get your biggest emerging market bang for your buck is by investing in large US multinational companies. Companies like Coca-Cola do a ton of business in places like China, and in fact, they get 3/4 of their profits from outside North America.
Thanks so much, Murray. It's good information. That's it for North of 49 this week. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned now for our quote of the week.
Ilsu's story brings to mind a little gem by Martin Buxbaum. He said, "Some people, no matter how they age, always are beautiful because they move their beauty from their face to their hearts."
North of 49, a guide to the rest of your life.